will have attracted the community's interest, and we've got obviously a special start to the meeting tonight. So welcome to those in the gallery, but also welcome to those viewers who are watching the live stream at home. I'll start by asking everyone please to stand as the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Proud, reads out the opening prayer and the acknowledgement of country.
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and evolving. Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. If everyone can take their seats. This evening's council meeting is very special for a couple of reasons, and the first of those, after a very big year and a challenging year at times, we've arrived at the final council meeting for 2022. So well done, everyone. But tonight we're also very pleased to be able to swear in our new councillor for the Balga Ward, Mr Michael Dudek. At the by-election held on Friday the 25th of November, Michael secured the seat convincingly by winning nearly 37% of the vote. In a field of 7 candidates, this is quite an achievement, and I'd like to extend my sincere congratulations to Michael. We're excited to see what Michael brings to the table. We're delighted to be able to officially swear him in as a councillor of the City of Stirling this evening. Michael, welcome on board. This evening, I would also like to welcome the City's Honorary Freeman, Tony Vallelonga, who will be officiating the declaration of the newly elected member. Before the meeting is open tonight, our new councillor is required to take the declaration of office as required by Section 2.291 of the Local Government Act 1995. I now invite Freeman Tony Vallelonga to officiate the declaration of the newly elected member. Sorry, Tony, could I just get you to move across here? Thanks.
Start now.
Yeah, right here.
I, Michael Dudek, of Unit 436, First Avenue, Mount Lawley, having been elected to the office of Councillor of the City of Stirling, declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly, faithfully, honestly and with integrity fulfil the duties of the office for the people in the district according to the best of my judgment and ability, and will observe the Code of Conduct adopted by the City of Stirling under Section 5104 of the Local Government Act 1995.
Congratulations and welcome to the city, and congratulations for being councillor.
Thanks so much.
Hang on, I'll get the mayor's pen. We'll have your pen.
Is this the official pen?
Go for the trusty old Bic.
There's no other papers. No, I just signed this. That's it. You're done.
Councillor Dudek, you're welcome to say a couple of quick words if you'd like.
I will. Just briefly, I want to thank my family and friends and lovely partner Anna for their support during the campaign. It was hard a lot of the time, but we got through it. But most of all, I want to thank all the residents of the Balga Ward for putting their trust in me. I hope to do a lot of good things with you over the next year. Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, officers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me here tonight to officially swearing in a young and active man, I hope. I think you must remember when you take a job as this, you've got to take it with love and respect. You're representing one of the best cities in Western Australia, and I will say Australian-wide. The City of Stirling has to have people like yourself, because young people are the future of running a city such as this. But please remember, you were elected by the people of Bulga. And you must work and represent the city to the best of your ability at all times. It's never no. It's always, how can I help? We are elected by the ratepayers, and I believe by mixing with the ratepayers, by having meeting with the ratepayers, probably you don't get an audience as big as you got here tonight. Because you might be able to solve that problem face to face at a table. And I recommend that to all the councillors. I was here for 17 years and I love the city dearly. And I hope you people will continue to run the city together, of course, with the leader, Mr. Mayor, which I'm sure is a great leader, to be able to run the city to the best of your abilities. And always remember that the city bigger than all of us put together. The city comes first. So to all of you, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, a prosperous and a healthy New Year, to you councillors and our ratepayers in the audience. And I hope the next year gets better and better for all of us. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you, Freeman Vallelonga, and congratulations again to Councillor Dudek. That now brings us to item 1, which is the official opening of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 6th of December 2022 open at 5:42 p.m. Item 2 is attendance and apologies. I have nil. 3, approval of absence, nil. Item 4, disclosure of interest. And disclosures from the Community and Resource Committee and the Planning and Development Committee can be found in the agenda of tonight's meeting and are also now displayed on the screen behind me. For tonight's meeting, Councillor Carlo Perkoff declared an impartial interest in 12.1 CC1 as applicants are known to him through the community. I also have received declarations from Councillor Thornton, Lagan and Olo regarding item 13.1 and impartial, as they have met and spoken with members of the committee and been out to the golf course. Obviously, many councillors around the chamber, so it's up to you, councillor, if you wish to, but most councillors have actually been out to the golf course, or many of them I know have, and seen that and met with the residents. We also have Councillor Thornton for item 13.2 on DA 220911, Inghams, the impartial interest, as she owns a property near the affected area and has spoken with residents. Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 impartialities. The first one is for item 13.1, the Mount Lawley Golf Course. I have spoken with the committee and ratepayers alike regarding this matter. And item 13.2, the proposed additions to the existing industry. I am the JDAP alternate and have an impartiality on this matter, and I'll withhold whether I'll leave the room or not.
Thank you. Any other indications, councillors? Councillor Ferranti.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll have to ditto also in regards to the meeting that was held at Mount Lawley Golf Course.
Councillor Farrelly. Yes, same. Sorry, just your microphone, councillor. Oh, my apologies. And just stand up, thanks. Count.
Sorry, stand up. I'm just trying to work out.
Through me, councillor.
13.2 as well, I think.
Is that it? Yep. Thank you. Councillor Corrado. Thank you. Councillor Perkoff.
Likewise, Mr. Mayor, 13.1 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ree.
I'd like to declare 13.2 because I'm an alternate JDAP member.
Thank you. And Councillor Migdale.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, 13.1, I met with the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Proud. I have already noted that most councillors have been there. I think it's quite appropriate. It's fine, but
apologies, and 13.2.
Thank you.
So it's relevant. We've met with the Mount Lawley Golf Club and
it's entirely up to councillors if they wish to declare it as an interest, but...
Okay.
Can I just get someone to come and turn this microphone in front of me off? I think it's causing... Thanks, councillors. That brings us to item 5, petitions. One petition has been received, as shown on the agenda. Councillor Hatton, would you like to table this petition?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I have the following petition containing 120 verified signatures. We, the undersigned, do respectfully request that the Council resolve the current escalated dangerous driving situation when exiting west off Brushfield Way, Settlers Green, Gwelup, when turning right onto North Beach Road, by either installing a roundabout at the intersection or by modifying the roads in the area to eliminate the recently escalated danger. Massively increased stationary traffic on the southbound side of North Beach Road and the massively increased volume of traffic travelling at 60 kilometres per hour along the northbound side of North Beach Road have combined to create a very dangerous situation where residents leaving Settlers Green via the only road exit from the subdivision heading north are almost always at great risk of being crashed into by traffic heading north. We consider that the major recent redevelopment and expansion of the Karrinyup Shopping Centre precinct and the associated residential developments in Karrinyup and Innaloo, causing much increased traffic funnelling past Settlers Green along Karrinyup Road via the new construction work on the Mitchell Freeway over the last few years, has created or increased this danger to the residents of the 120 homes in the landlocked subdivision of Settlers Green.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other petitions that anyone wishes to present? If not, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept that petition? Move Councillor Perkoff, seconded Councillor Reen. Just a show of hands, councillors, to accept the petition. Thank you, that's unanimous. Item 6 is responses to the previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and the public questions from the last council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. We will now move on to public question time. Look, obviously, one of the items on the agenda tonight has received significant interest. We now are going to go through a significant number of questions, which will take a significant amount of time, which is okay. But can I just ask you, please, as we go through these, that if your question is already asked, if you can keep it as brief as possible or prefer not to ask it. Happy to answer any questions you have, remembering this has been asked at several council meetings since 2021. So I will start by asking Lynn Hancock, if you could please come forward. And as a first one up, if I can get you to turn the microphone on, bottom right-hand corner, the button, you'll see a red light come on. That's it, and you can list that on now. And then if you just say your name and your suburb, and then your question, please.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Hancock, and I live in North Perth. Just my first question, Mark. Yep. Mount Lawley's been 90 years in the making, and it's looking extremely well at the moment. And there's a lot of members that are very unhappy with the thought of the trees that are very matured coming down. Is that it?
Yeah, oh, sorry, just question. So do you have a question regarding it?
No, it was just my comment.
Okay, thank you. So tonight is question time, so we'll just take that as a question or a comment, but we understand. And that item is on the agenda this evening,
Yes,
and Council
it
will
is.
take that into consideration.
All right.
Jenny Thew. And again, just name and suburb and then your question.
Hi, I'm Jenny Thew, member of Mount Lawley Golf Club. I live in Church Hill. Question number 1 is our council aware that the 33 trees related to the Greens replacement programme are not required to be removed for the Greens replacement programme to go ahead?
Thank you. Mr Hunter?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Mount Lawley Golf Club has submitted the Mount Lawley Golf Course Vegetation Management Plan, which includes the requested removal of 63 trees. The City has assessed this request and is subject of item 13.1 for consideration on the Council agenda.
Question 2?
Yes, thank you.
There was a tree removed next to the 4th green, and can Council please tell me who deemed it necessary for this to be removed and for what reason?
Thank you. Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, there's 15 trees adjacent to the 14th hole listed in the club's vegetation management plan, so I'm not quite sure which trees being referred to, but if it's the tree that was crushed with the limb falling down in early November, that was deemed to be unviable and the tree's been removed.
Thank you, Mr Hunter, and we can provide you confirmation of that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
And finally, number 3, what outreach has been made by the City of Stirling to gauge the wider community's acceptance of removal of 150 trees from Mount Lawley Golf Club?
Thank you, Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the application in this particular instance is for 63 trees to be removed, requested by the club. 32 relates to the green replacement program, 1 for vegetation reasons, and 30 due to arboricultural reasons, which includes the likes of poor health and structure, dead, dying, diseased specimens. Club members will fully fund the implementation of the vegetation management plan, and as such, consultation with the wider community has not occurred.
Thank you. Angie Cassian.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Angie Cassian from Mount Lawley. My item relates to item 13.1. We acknowledge the wonderful volunteers for their contribution and Mount Lawley's initiative for devising a bushland report and plans for the Banksia Melaleuca woodland areas of the golf course. Figure 1 in Mount Lawley's vegetation management system provides a graphical representation of management structure on page 8 of their report and outlines a list of documents that form part of that plan. The Strategic Plan 2021 to 2024, Beyond the Fairways, Vegetation Management Plan, Bushland Management Plan, Greens Replacement Program, Bushland Report and the Arboricultural Survey and Risk Assessment. What appears to have been omitted by Mount Lawley is this report as referenced on page 28 in the website hyperlinks. To be able to read these documents online that provide the fundamental foundation to their vegetation management plans and have also excluded both the tree survey data spreadsheets and the greens replacement concept plans. So my question is, when will Council and the City request from Mount Lawley all relevant documents to be made public and available that are an integral component of this vegetation management plan before a decision is made?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, we can certainly request the club to provide those links, but the item before Council today is the vegetation management plan, and that's obviously an attachment to this report.
My second question, our concerns relate to the Greens Replacement Program proposed removal of tall canopy trees on the landscape golf course area, which is part of the grander course master plan of 2015. So where is the tree canopy modelling projection report that Mount Lawley commissioned as table 3 on page 22, as this brief future prediction of overall canopy does not distinguish between low, mid and upper canopy layers? What key performance indicators were used to measure canopy coverage from 2019 to 2022, which is a better indicator of Mount Lawley's tree maintenance plan than a future prediction, and how does this compare with the latest Spectra 2022 MAP data?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the urban forest modelling undertaken by the Mount Lawley Golf Club that's contained in the Vegetation Management Plan was undertaken by a reputable consultant commissioned, as I say, by the club. The City is currently preparing an urban forest tree canopy cover data of all golf courses across the City for future council reference, and this is likely to be available early 2023. The City analysis undertaken by the city analysis undertaken by the Mount Lawley Golf Course tree canopy for the period 2017 to 2021 indicated a 3 hectare overall tree canopy gain, with a loss of 2.4 hectares in the upper canopy and a gain of 5.3 hectares of the mid canopy.
Thank you, Mr Hunter. And your third question?
Okay. Figure 5B, aerial photographs of part of Mount Lawley in 2020, yet on the map it shows 2022, This is on page 24 of the report. Question, why have outdated maps taken in 2017 or before been used in Appendix 4, which gives a false representation of the exact tree locations and shows extensive canopy coverage on the golf course, which does not accurately reflect the sparseness of trees that have already been removed on the golf course now as at 2022 on page 47-48?
Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, these were simply the maps provided by the club.
Can I just finish off with one item? I trust the council will take the appropriate time required to request and review all necessary information before making an informed decision that will have a long and lasting impact on this beautiful native A-class reserve. And I'd like to just wish everyone, you and your families, a safe, joyful and peaceful festive season. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Bradshaw, please. And again, just your name and suburb.
Suzanne Bradshaw, Mount Lawley. Mayor Irwin, councillors, Kaya, and thank you for inviting me to speak. Is council aware that some of the introduced trees at Mount Lawley Golf Course, such as river red gums, can be prolific invaders of threatened Banksia woodlands, and that at MLGC it is only the work of golf club staff and volunteers that is keeping them from spreading further into remnant bushlands?
Thank you. Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, yes, certainly the city is aware that river red gums and other tree species can self-seed into adjacent natural areas.
Thank you. And your second question?
Is council aware that we have identified more than 50 species of birds utilising the Mount Lawley Golf Course area, including important species such as the rainbow bee-eater, forest red-tailed cockatoos, and the endangered Carnaby's cockatoo and Bodan cockatoo?
Thank you for that. And yes, the city is aware the golf course provides these important natural habitat, in addition, obviously, to their purpose as a recreation facility.
Thank you. Furthermore, does the council know that extensive areas of remnant bushland and parkland trees being protected at MLGC, and many of the thousands of trees being planted in restoration zones at MLGC are important food sources for these birds?
Thank you. Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, yes, the city's Conservation and Wildlife officers provided initial technical support in support of the club to rehabilitate degraded natural areas using contemporary environmental restoration principles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stan Bell, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stan Bell. I live in Manoa. My question one is, I am one of 5 members at the Mount Lawley Golf Club and have been a member for 55 years. I ask Council to recognise that although the trees we planted during the 1970s and 80s were done in good faith, we now know that some of these plantings were a mistake. In particular, I ask Council to recognise that introduced trees should not be allowed to damage greens, fairways, or the valuable remnant bushland remaining at the Mount Lawley Golf Club.
Thank you. Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, yes, the city is aware of the legacy issues relating to tree planting on the course dating back to the 70s and 80s, as the city often manages similar landscapes. While some of these tree species may not be currently planted, each tree needs to be considered on its merits, that is, considering the risks relative to the contribution both to the environment and to landscape.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Bell. Have you got another question, or is that?
No, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Broadby.
Good evening. My name's Diane Broadby. I live in Inglewood. Is Council aware that Mount Lawley Golf Club makes a substantial financial investment every year in managing bushland and rehabilitation areas at the site? This includes funding a full-time land care officer, the provision of plant and equipment such as tractors, utilities and water carts, and the funding of a wide range of consumables.
In short, yes, councillors are very aware, and many councillors have attended the site and visited and seen the work firsthand and understood it.
And my second question is, Council aware that the MLGC volunteer work now extends beyond the planting of endemic species and weed control to improve other aspects of its biodiversity? This includes the construction of quenda refuges, protection of rainbow bee-eater nests, the construction of native bee refuges and the provision of boobook owl nesting boxes. All of this additional work has been funded by the club and its volunteers.
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, wildlife protection and habitat improvements on the course provides two important benefits. Firstly, an enhanced natural experience for members enjoying the course setting, and secondly, assisting broader wildlife connectivity across the region on the Perth coastal plain.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Matthew Holding.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Matthew Holding. I'm from Karrinyup. I have two questions. My first question is the Council aware that since 2019, MLGC volunteers and the club's dedicated land care officer have reintroduced more than 9,500 endemic plants to the rehabilitated areas at the site?
Thank you for that question. Yes, councillors have been on site and inspected some of those plantings and have also read the report, which includes some of those details.
Thank you very much. So my last question is, these plantings include more than 3,160 trees such as chewits, marries, jarrah, coastal blackbutt, she oaks, paperbarks and flooded gums, along with a variety of banksia species. Does the council acknowledge any suggestion that the rehabilitation works do not include tall growing tree species is untrue?
Thank you for that question. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, Mr Holding is absolutely correct. Chewits, marri trees, jarrah, flooded gums, coastal blackbutt, planted by the Mount Lawley Golf Course volunteers are all endemic species found on the Swan coastal plain and are trees typically that develop significant canopy and provide environmental benefits to wildlife.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions. We have exceeded public question time, so I will rule to extend public question time to allow further questions and invite Marty Dungy forward, please.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Question 1. Does council recognise and value that more than 10,000 person hours contributed by MLGC volunteers over the past 4 years in planting and nurturing rehabilitation works at the site?
Thank you for that. Yes, councillors acknowledge that, and again, they have been out on site and talked to the volunteers and heard those details. Sorry, just before you do your next question, I don't know if I didn't hear you, if you've said your name and suburb before.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Marty Dungy, Morley.
Thank you. Question 2.
Question 2. Does council share the aims of the club management and the volunteer network that the site can house both a high quality golf course and quality endemic vegetation?
Yes.
And question 3, does council agree with the volunteers that both the golf course and remnant bushland at the site deserve protection through the removal of introduced trees that represent a direct threat to either golf course, quality or remnant bushland health?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the City's approach has been to assess each tree requested for removal on its merits. That means to understand its context, its impacts and its benefits. The City has also recognised the work undertaken by the volunteers with respect to bushland management.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Christian Nichols, please. And your name and suburb to start. Thank you.
Good evening. Christian Nichols, Menora. Question 1. Is the council aware that the endemic species being planted in revegetation areas at Mount Lawley are well suited to the local climate, including from a water usage perspective?
Thank you for that. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the club is certainly undertaking contemporary practices and techniques in its bushland restoration program, including plant species choices.
Second question, is the council aware that Mount Lawley is working to reduce turfed areas at the club, which is aiming to reduce water over the coming years?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the city is aware that the state government requires golf clubs on the Nangara Mound, including the Mount Lawley Golf Club, to reduce its groundwater extraction licence volume by 10% by 2028.
Thank you. And your third?
Yeah, last one. Having recently visited the site, will the council acknowledge that suggestions made by some individuals at Mount Lawley is seeking to widen the fairways through tree removal are untrue?
Thank you for that. And look, the item is on the agenda for tonight. It's a submission by the Mount Lawley Golf Club, and it's regarding the vegetation management plan and the requested tree removals.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia McAuliffe. Your name and suburb, please.
Sonia McAuliffe, Inglewood. Question 1. Is Council aware that bushland restoration works undertaken at Kings Park have included the removal of non-Indigenous eucalypts, which had previously been planted to beautify the bushland?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, the city is acutely aware that trees in isolated locations in public open space away from the public eye tend to attract less attention.
Thank you. And your second question?
Does Council agree that Kings Park and Botanic Gardens is an eminent scientific organisation and their decisions on tree and bushland management are likely to be a good guide for other organisations?
Short answer is yes. Obviously, each situation and circumstance would require the context around that as well, though.
Thank you.
Phil Green.
Good evening. Phil Green, Morley. Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors. I've got two questions. First question, is Council aware that the canopy cover at Mount Lawley Golf Club has increased over several decades and that canopy cover will continue to increase if both the replanting program and problematic tree removals continue as proposed by the Mount Lawley Golf Club management?
Thank you, Mr Green. Yes, the Mount Lawley Golf Course, the tree canopy cover has increased over time, and we're also aware of the Urban Forest Consultant predictions on future growth currently.
Okay, and before my second question, can I ask Council to note that the work done by Mount Lawley Golf Club to develop the vegetation management plan and associated documents was undertaken by qualified environmental professionals. So my last question, is Council aware that specialist environmental consultancy PGV Environmental recently reported that the restoration work being undertaken at Mount Lawley Golf Club was, quote, some of the best revegetation we have seen?
Thank you for that. And yes, that documentation is forming part of the report, and again, councillors have been on site and done their research on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lynn Eames Springham, please.
Lynn Eames Springham, and I live in Joondalup. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, officers and gallery. The City of Stirling have placed a moratorium on tree removals from Mount Lawley Golf Club. A paperbark tree has been removed with no inspection from the City of Stirling. They were not told until the ground superintendent had cut it down. That tree was number 1494. And just happens to be one of the trees targeted by Mount Lawley Golf Club for removal. The grounds superintendent said a fallen limb from a red river gum destroyed the paper bark. That limb failure was on tree number 1492. It had 3 major branch failures at the base of the large primary east-facing branch, according to the Arbor Carbon report, who 2 years ago recommended a weight reduction prune and aerial inspection for presence of decay. The ground superintendent said it happened during a ladies' round and that it was lucky no one was under it. Indeed. Will Parks and Sustainability please supply all councillors with the email from Mount Lawley Golf Club on the 9th of November and the City's response?
Thank you for that. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, on the 9th of November 2022, the club advised the City by email of a large limb failure of a river red gum that smashed an adjacent paperbark tree. As an urgent safety issue with good photographic evidence, the city agreed that the site needed to be made safe and the tree removed. The gum tree with the failed limb was inspected on the 16th of November by city tree officers. The city notes that from the club's Arbor Carbon tree listing, tree number 1492 was rated by the arborist as being low priority.
Thank you.
Is that a yes? When will you be able to supply that email to all councillors, Mr. Hunter?
I'm sure if we needed to see the email, we could see it, Ms. Springham.
Thank you. It does have the pictures.
Sure.
Question number 2. How can a tree removal plan be considered by its officer to meet the criteria of a proper tree management plan, which is a special condition for Mount Lawley Golf Club's lease extension, which by definition is focused on protecting and conserving the natural assets of an A-class reserve and manage them accordingly for future survival, and not seen as just a justification to design the golf course layout by planned removal of healthy, large and mature trees?
Thank you. Mr. Hunter?
Mr. Mayor, the trees listed for removal in the submission by the Mount Lawley Golf Club in its vegetation management plan have been assessed by senior staff from Parks and Sustainability Unit. And it's not just the trees that have been considered, it's the overall vegetation management, which includes the bushland restoration work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Question 3. Given this matter is potentially a highly contentious community issue and that it has been expedited into council, I'll start again.
That's right, yep.
Given this matter is potentially a highly contentious community issue and that it has been expedited into the agenda under clause 42/4 without first going to council committee, wouldn't it be more prudent for this matter to be deferred to provide appropriate time for councillors to consider the veracity of the report and to afford the opportunity for public comment, especially if there is a possibility of council's decision being appealed to the State Administrative Tribunal, given the lack of reasonable time for public scrutiny, collaboration and consultation?
Thank you for that question. Look, I think it is important to note that whilst this hasn't gone to committee, that is not unregular for this council through the cycle process, particularly given that we won't again meet till possibly next February, I think the first meeting is. It's also important to note that councillors certainly have been informed, councillors have attended the site and been informed of those, the actions that are happening there. This has also formed part of council meeting and has been brought before council during public question time, as you're aware, Ms Springham, right back to the 12th of October on at least 7 or 8 occasions at council meetings. So it certainly has been given due regard. As for the SAT or the appeal process, look, any item can be appealed, I guess, at any time, and it's up to an individual to do that, and we can't make our decision based on the possibility of an appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Broadby.
My name's Frank Broadby. I live in Inglewood. Question 1. Is the Council aware that the United Nations General Assembly has declared 2021 and 2030 as the decade of ecosystem restoration, and that this initiative focuses on ecosystem restoration through natural biodiversity, ecosystem health and integrity? It is a global rallying cry to heal the planet by ecosystem restoration. It aims to prevent, halt and reverse the degradation of ecosystems on every continent and in every ocean. I draw your attention to Principle 8 of the UN initiative. Restoration is local in nature and measures beneficial in one place can have adverse effects elsewhere. So introducing trees and species not native to a degraded environmental area can lead to further degradation. Mount Lawley Golf Club is situated on a degraded Banksia melaleuca bushland of the Swan Coastal Plain, which is now a nationally protected ecological community. Mount Lawley Golf Club is a restoration implementer, having started in 2019 with the reintroduction of endemic trees and plants to the Swan Coastal Plain. This has continued in 2020, 2021 and 2022. In this regard, Mount Lawley Golf Club has won 2 successive environmental awards in the years 2020 and 2021.
Mr Broadby, I'm going to ask you to round that question up, please.
Yeah.
If we can.
The UN has stated it will only succeed if everyone plays a part. Is the City of Stirling willing to support this initiative?
Thank you. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, natural ecosystems are highly urbanised environments which require active, ongoing management to be successful. It is true that in general terms, native trees and vegetation are likely to adapt to changing climates and environments better than most. However, so too will other species. It depends on many factors.
Thank you. And your next question, please.
The next question, I'll just start by saying 15 years ago when I joined Mount Lawley Golf Club and attended my first AGM, it was obvious that there was a long-standing dissatisfaction with the condition of greens and to a lesser extent fairways. The then golf professional at Mount Lawley Golf Club, Neil Simpson, stood up and said, "The problem at Mount Lawley Golf Club is the wrong trees have been planted and they've been planted in the wrong places." That in a nutshell is the problem at Mount Lawley Golf Club, and at last it's being addressed. As I've previously mentioned, UN principles...
Sorry, sir, can I just get you to get to a question?
Yeah.
Just as we have several to get through.
Okay. Well, despite the grandeur of the red river gums and Tasmanian blue gums, those trees are the wrong trees for the Swan Coastal Plain. They are bullies on the block and they make it extremely difficult for turf growth around the trees. They also have an aggressive far-reaching and water-intensive root system. Considering the United Nations principle and considering the points above, and the land leased by Mount Lawley Golf Club is for a golf course, does the City of Stirling consider it unreasonable that non-endemic destructive trees planted in the proximity of the construction of new golf greens should be the first trees removed in a gradual restoration of the Mount Lawley Golf Club Banksia and Melaleuca woodland?
Thank you for that. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, large trees with extensive canopies have value in the landscape, such as shade for humans and wildlife, roosting sites for birds, habitats for invertebrates and other wildlife. Each tree's condition, contribution and context needs to be considered and assessed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim McAuliffe.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thank you for extending question time. My name's Tim McAuliffe. I live in Inglewood. I ask Council to recognise that the Greens Replacement Program recently commenced at Mount Lawley Golf Club represents an investment by club members of more than $2.5 million, and that a significant portion of this investment could be undermined if a small number of problematic trees are allowed to damage the health of the new greens.
Thank you for that question, and yes, the club has certainly made representations to that regard to the city officers.
I also ask, is Council aware that of the 911 members eligible to vote on the Greens Replacement Program, including the problematic tree removal, a return rate of more than 70% was received, and that of those votes, more than 90%, or 583 people, voted in favour of the Greens Replacement Program?
Thank you for that question, and yes, the club has advised the city of those results and they are included in the report that will be considered by council this evening.
Thank you. And finally, I ask council to note that a healthy number of Mount Lawley Golf Club members are present in the public gallery this evening in support of the club's vegetation management plan and the recommendations before council as presented in item 13.1.
Yes, thank you. We did notice there were a couple here. Thanks.
I'm sure they're happy to raise their hand if you want to see who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Hasey, please. Is there a Don Hasey? Hasey? Yes, apologies. Wouldn't be a council meeting if I didn't get one wrong.
That's all right.
And just your name and something.
Don Hansey.
Thank you.
Ida Street in Balcatta. My business is in Roe Allen Street, right next door to Ingham's Chickens. And that's 3 questions I submitted. I didn't bring them with me, but I'll get straight to the point. The first one was we put up with noxious smells from...
Would you like us to get you a copy of those questions?
That'd be great.
If we can, I'll see if we can. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get you those questions. If you can read each one out, and then we can give you the answer to those.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm authorised by the Chairman and the Council of Owners to represent the voice of the Council of Owners. We're in a block of units adjacent to Ingham's Chickens. For the last 10 years, I've been operating a commercial kitchen, which is about 10 steps from Ingham's Chickens factory. We've been putting up with foul, excuse the pun, odours for the last 20 odd years that honestly are very sickening. I have a lot of people doing food production in my kitchen, and sometimes in the mornings when you're sweeping the feathers away that come into the kitchen, the stink is just outrageous. My question to Ingham's Chickens basically is they're spending nearly 20 million redeveloping or trying to mitigate this smell. Can they guarantee that they will mitigate the noxious odours that continually flow down? If the wind's blowing easterly, they flow down to Roe Allen. If they're northerly, there's existing units, people living right next door to Ingham's Chickens. So can they guarantee that we'll no longer have to put up with noxious, foul smells? Question 1.
Sure. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your question, Mr Hansey. The existing unenclosed wastewater treatment plant that's on the site currently, which is probably responsible for a large proportion of that odour, has been on site since around the 1970s. So it obviously doesn't benefit from any of the latest technology improvements to those sort of facilities. The proposed wastewater treatment plant is understood by the city to be best practice in terms of what this application is proposing to deliver. We can't 100% guarantee that will address every single odour on site. However, because it is such a high standard of facility, it is considered to be the best option at this stage.
Okay, thanks for that. I noticed there was an earth move in there today starting to remove earth. Are they allowed to move ahead with production?
Just through me, sorry. Is that your second question?
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
The second one was, we've been told, we went to a meeting with the Ingham's people, and they've said that there's no increase in production, and yet they've asked now to have 4 more trucks come in, semi-trailers. So are they going to, can they guarantee they're not increasing the slaughterhouse productions?
Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor. They're currently operating below their licensed capacity, and the addition of this wastewater treatment plant will allow them to increase that capacity through this, I guess, the efficiency of this wastewater facility.
Okay, now the one's addressed to the Minister for Common Sense. When you look at the Glendalough plan is about, to me I call it gentrifying what's happening in Mount Hawthorn, which I know is Vincent, but the whole gentrification and the building of community spirit in the city of Stirling's amazing. I still can't work out why we've got an industrial business, a slaughterhouse, right in the centre of this Glendalough plan, which is about rejuvenating and making it more community. Why can't they move the factory and allow people to live and breathe clean air? It's just a common sense question. I just can't see why we've got light industrial or semi-industrial now in a residential area.
Thank you for that question. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The application that we've got on the agenda tonight is essentially for works only, so it's just for a shed and a wastewater treatment plant. Under our planning framework, that's not considered to be a substantial redevelopment of the site. If they were proposing that, it would be a different assessment that the city would undertake. So uses like this, which have been established lawfully, even though a number of years ago, and notwithstanding the future direction for the area, they are allowed to continue and do some improvements over time. And this is the assessment we undertook and found that in this particular instance, it's able to be approved.
Thank you for those questions, Mr Hansey. We certainly do understand your concerns, though.
All right, thank you. Whose was this?
Joshua Tench.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. And just your name and suburb, thanks.
Good evening, Joshua Tench from Karrinyup. And I've got a couple of questions, 3 questions on behalf of the North Beach Soccer Club in relation to item 13.4. Is the council aware that tender report 13.4 will have a significant positive impact to ensure the 710 registered players across 46 teams at North Beach Soccer Club have access to much needed safe storage facilities, upgraded change rooms and toilet upgrades in the items on the agenda tonight?
The short answer is yes. Look, council deals with these reasonably regularly and certainly understands the impact that investment in our clubs throughout the City of Stirling have on the community and the clubs themselves.
Question number 2, is the council aware that North Beach Soccer Club is an inclusive, family-friendly club, meeting the needs of the local community by providing quality soccer coaching, leadership, in a positive environment from our youngest player, a 5-year-old girl, through to our oldest 69-year-old man and everyone in between?
Yes, they certainly are.
And the final question, is the council aware that soccer is the largest club-based participation sport, not only in the country, but also in the state of WA? In 2021, we had over 160,000 participants in WA, and we had this represented an 11% growth from the previous year, where we had 10,000 odd female participants. Looking over the history from North Beach, we've had significant increases in female registrations in recent years, with an 85% increase in junior girls over the last 10 years, 85% in senior women's over the last 5 years, to make us the largest club north of the river and one of the largest in the state. We expect this trend to continue as Australia and New Zealand host the Women's World Cup in 2023.
Thank you very much for that question. Council is certainly now aware of that, and there's some good information there. I can also just inform you that you've got several soccer tragics sitting around the council table here, and probably at the back as well. But some of the council, I think it was the main topic of conversation. You'll probably see some dreary eyes around a few councillors who are very excited after watching some games.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our members and patrons that have turned up to support this tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And can I also just acknowledge the great work the club does in the community, and also to those members and committee members who are here representing the club tonight. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Rob Bapard.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and members of the gallery. Rob Bapard of Scarborough and President of the Stirling Progress Association. So my question isn't on trees, but it's on the budget, and I can say appropriately that money doesn't grow on trees. So I can also add to my question by referring to the corporate plan for a balanced budget for 2022 and 2023. What non-core services may be affected through absorbing inflation costs in the city, and has natural attrition, restructuring and redesigning staff roles been adopted or being considered by the city as part of the strategy to keep rates low?
Thank you. And the short answer to that would be most of the services are probably affected by the increases in inflation at the moment, and natural attrition certainly is being considered. I'll get Ms Hawkins to provide some information.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Bapard. And yes, as the Mayor says, we've certainly been focusing on services and projects. I think with the city's focus has really been to defer those lower priority projects so that we can continue to provide the service levels. In some services, we have amended, I guess, service levels, but do continue to provide service. We've also repurposed roles into those core services and have been focusing on, I guess, diversification of revenue sources. So together, all those measures are aimed at minimising that impact on rates and keeping rates low.
And I can assure also the members of the gallery who are probably listening intently to your question, Mr. Papard, the council, it'll be an ongoing challenge for this council dealing with the cost of inflation and ensuring that those costs aren't absorbed by ratepayers. It's important to acknowledge this council has had rate freezes, but also it's been the lowest increases in the sector in Western Australia over the last number of years, and puts us as the lowest rating council in Western Australia.
Thank you for that. Next question, what sort of savings is the city's solar escalation program likely to deliver, and is there a plan to expand the program to deliver additional energy cost savings and therefore lower rates for ratepayers?
Yes, Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor. The estimated saving in the current programme is $3.3 million. That's in relation to electricity costs for the city by 2040. And obviously this saving will be considered as part of the city's annual budgeting process. In terms of expansion of the programme, that is subject to a business case, and that is an ongoing process that the council considers each year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Third and final question. What's the status of the city's recycling centre in Balcatta, and does it have a viable long-term future given the other competitive small businesses in the city of Stirling operating in the same space?
Yeah, thank you. And it's important to note that the city's recycling centre in Balcatta is an ageing facility, and there will be significant investment in that facility over the coming years. Whilst part of it may just be around certain portions, in terms of recycling, the city maintains its status as probably the largest recycler of things like e-waste and many consumables, not only in the state but in Australia. So it continues to maintain its long-term viability, and it certainly plays a part in terms of waste transfer for ourselves and other local governments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Arnold Davies. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're getting there. We're almost there. Nice to have you back, Mr. Davies.
Good evening. Arnold Davies, Carrinup. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillor, staff and members of the gallery. Why didn't the City of Stirling respond to the Telstra correspondence in July 2021 regarding the retention of the public telephone box at 65 Francis Avenue, Carrinup? The failure to support the retention has resulted in the removal of this service for the ratepayers.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Davies. I'm guessing we're going to have to respond to you in writing with the details of that. I thought we had a deal, though. I did promise you if you didn't ask that, I'd buy you a mobile phone.
The second question, how much money has the City of Stirling expended in 2022 in legal expenses or taking action against councillors?
Thank you for that. We'll have to take that one on notice, Mr. Davies, and respond to you in writing.
Question 3, what percentage of plastic bottles collected at the collection point in Balcatta Road are recycled, and where is this done?
100%.
Whereabouts?
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. They are transferred through the materials recycling facility we use, which is owned by Veolia, I believe. I'm looking at the manager of Waste. Sorry? Oh, yeah, if I clarify the question, you're talking about the containers for change depot?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe the waste manager can describe how...
Mr. Bryant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that with the state government's green guarantee that 100% of all materials put through containers for change depots are recycled. Plastic bottles, all the different material types through various outcomes. I can provide further detail in writing if that's required.
We can provide you the detail in writing of where they all end up. If that's
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Ellis.
Peter Ellis, Green. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and staff and fellow ratepayers. Can you please advise, was Mr Jardine on annual leave when the council paid for his business class airfare to USA this year?
Yeah, it was a conference and it wasn't business class.
Oh, it was in the minutes as business class. Apologies for that. Okay. Can you please advise how many square metres of asphalt has been laid in the modified cul-de-sacs in Careen as listed in the previous minutes?
Lots.
I know. How many?
I think we're going to have to respond to you in writing on that one, Mr Ellis.
Right, good. Thank you. Can you please advise how many other employees of the City of Stirling Council have had their airfares paid whilst travelling on annual leave?
It'd only be if they were going on a conference, Mr Ellis, but we'll respond to you in writing and give you...
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Councillors?
Yeah. You're all welcome to meet with Mr Ellis after, councillors, if you'd like to have a conversation about it. Leisha Jack, please. Thank you. Just your name and suburb.
Is that working? Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. My name's Leisha Jack from Karrinyup. First, before I ask my questions, which are all pertaining to the tree removal on the Mount Lawley Golf Club, I just want to make it very clear to everyone in the gallery as well. I'm the convener of the Stirling Urban Tree Network, but I've also been a very long time member of the Urban Bushland Council. I have been a volunteer on community bushland preservation groups and also worked for some highly esteemed environmental scientists, not as a scientist, but just for them. I love biodiversity. I care about it. It's incredibly important to me.
Noted, Ms Jack.
Okay. So, and I'd also like to thank all of the amazing bushland volunteers that have been working at the club because, yeah, I really do appreciate what they do. So, my first question, Mr Mayor, is, have you ever had anyone from the Mount Lawley Golf Club or OCM, their course architects, or a City of Stirling officer provide you with or sit you down and go through the Mount Lawley Golf Club's 2015 master plan? Or the newer part, version 2 of that of the master plan, or provided you with or shown you the OCM Vimeo video that explains their objectives for this public land that is vested in the city?
Thank you. No, I haven't seen all of it.
You haven't seen all, you haven't, has anyone, if so, when and by whom?
Thank you. I'll get Mr Hunter to respond on behalf of all the council of what information the officers have in council.
I particularly wanted to know, Mr Mayor, if you had actually been given that information.
Many councillors have visited the golf course.
No, I'm asking about the 2015 master plan. Have you ever been walked through it?
No, I've already said no.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. That's okay.
Mr Hunter?
Mr Mayor, the draft master plan hasn't been formally presented to council for assessment.
Sorry, 2015 master plan. That's part 2.
Yep.
Okay. Right. Okay. Question 2. Is the council aware that prior to 2019, the bushland on the site was badly neglected and degraded? The club leases this land from the city for a mere $13,640 a year. Surely the proposed plantings and bushland generation work, the amazing work they're doing, should be done. So, generating bushland that they allowed to become degraded and doing offset planting to replace the protected bushland that they removed for their 19th hole, which was done without council approval, at council's
Miss
approval.
Jack, through me,
Sorry,
please.
councillor's approval. Should that grant them an excuse to remove trees from the parkland area of the course that is not bushland?
Thank you. And look, that item, as you are aware, is on the agenda this evening for councils to consider. I do have to say, I don't at all think that the course has been let to be degraded.
No, the bushland was badly neglected and
you're welcome to take that up with the club, but that's not for something
well, I
tonight.
happen to know that for a fact. I'll show you some photographs. Okay, so, so many questions. Is the council aware that some of the red river gums that I saw on a tour, the superintendent pointed out river gums, that were apparently problematic. That, by the way, all these problematic trees and dangerous trees weren't a problem prior, again, to all of this master plan work. But those trees that are now a problem, and they wanted to remove them, one of the people in that group asked, well, what are you going to put? These trees are in the fairway, not in the bushland areas, in between the fairways. What are you going to put there? Are you going to put some bushland shrubs or something? Oh, no, he said to everyone in the group who heard it. So they're not, it's very important to understand, is the council truly aware of the designated areas and what is really going on? Because the bushland, of course, should be regenerated. No one has any question about that. Again, you know, my question there is the council really aware of what is going on where on that course?
Council, all I can say is that item is on the agenda this evening. Officers have been heavily engaged with the club over the last couple of years. Councillors have made every effort to get themselves across this information, and many have visited the golf course. Council are not across every tree that is proposed to be removed, but there's as you'll see in the report tonight, there's a level of delegation that should go to the experts in this area and officers. But councils will make that determination this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now that is the last one I have. Is there anyone who's missed out? Mr. Wheeler. Welcome back, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mayor Irwin. It's great to be back.
Missed you,
You'll
Mr.
feel
Wheeler.
the same in a minute, but anyway, I'll be as quick as I can. Good evening, Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. Mayor Irwin, in relation to item 12.2 DS5, it notes that the city's officers often look to continually improve the city's planning framework and, where appropriate, align the city's policies with the state framework. But alignment is not being considered. What's being considered is the removal of a policy that covers possibly the single most contentious aspect of the local planning framework. The report notes that removing the policy will help reduce ratepayer confusion. And I wondered for a minute, maybe Mr. John Syme has been sacked by the DAP and now working for the City of Stirling with comments like that.
Keep going, Mr. Wheeler.
The officer's report struggles to find any significant issue with the policy and relies on the marketing alliteration of speed, service and simplicity. Council can simply amend the policy, as it usually does, to bring it in line with the R codes, as and when it sees fit. The report states that this is simply the removal of red tape, which is a political term, a content-free statement, not a considered one. So my question, councillors, is do you want to be the councillors who vote to further erode ratepayer consultation on issues that can adversely affect the most important asset they will probably ever possess?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Wheeler. Obviously, that's an agenda item this evening for council to consider. Look, committee did deliberate on this. I don't believe it is an erosion of council's power. I think the reduction of red tape isn't just a catchphrase. It is important that we look at not duplicating policies that don't achieve any added benefit for residents or ratepayers. But council will determine that this evening.
That's pretty much how the DAP operate, Mayor, and we know where that goes. I'm going to miss question 2 as a Christmas present to you.
Appreciate it.
although I don't know how many friends I'm going to make now. Anyway, I thought the report in item 12.2 DS5 was one of the most one-dimensional reports I've ever read at the City. Of course, at that point, I had not read the report for item 13.1. And I think, like Croatia and England, this report and the previous item are both through to the quarterfinals to win a prize of some description or another. But what I'm mostly surprised at, this item didn't go to committee.
I think you're lucky the soccer club's left.
But mostly I'm surprised that this item did not go to committee. And my question is, what's the rush with this item? Where's the consultation? This is public land. Why did it not go to committee? Noting that if we're not for the good work of some members of the community, we may never have discovered the original plan to remove 500 trees.
And thank you for that question. There certainly is no rush for this item, Mr Wheeler. As I said before, this has been an item that has been brought before this council's attention for well over 2 years and formed question time at no less than 7 or 8 council meetings. There's been significant consultation with community. Officers have been heavily engaged. There's nothing to hide here, Mr Wheeler.
Okay, thank you very much.
And with that, without a further show of hands from anyone in the gallery, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you for your patience getting through those many questions. I'll now move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillors, are there any applications for leave of absence? No indication. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 15th of November? Move Councillor Hatton, seconded Councillor Olo. And a show of hands, please, councillors, to accept those minutes. That is sorry, councillors, just everyone, that's it? That is unanimous. Sorry? Sorry, councillors. Let's just go to the electronic vote for this. It's going to make it easier because you're all having a little look down. Thank you. And that we have Councillor Dudek. Yep, just if we can just make sure. Thank you. And that is carried with Councillor Ree. Would you like to make a quick comment on your reason, Councillor Ree?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. I did ask to put a motion forward several months ago with regarding Bennett Park, a review of Bennett Park. I was advised by both yourself and governance to turn it into question. It went to a question. The question, as you agreed, the answers weren't asked. It was supposed to be followed up in the following minutes, and it wasn't there either. So I intend tonight to move my original motion, which said that we need a report, which you, Mr Mayor, agreed that should have been done, and it's not there still.
Okay, thank you, councillor. It's not a reason to vote against the minutes, but we'll record that down.
Well, I do believe you did
so I'll
say
move
it was
on.
going to be referred to.
It's bizarre. I will now go on to item 10, which is announcements by the presiding member. I do wish to make an announcement briefly tonight, and I think it's an important one. I'd like to, first of all, on behalf of council, just pass my condolences to Councillor Migdale, and I'd like to briefly mention why. So, a major benefactor in this community, Dr. Harry Hoffman AM, passed away last night. Through his generosity and his vision to both the Jewish and the wider communities, numerous organisations have been able to develop their facilities, including the Carmel School in Dianella, which bears the Hoffman name in its official title. As Mayor, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Hoffman on a number of occasions, and this remarkable man survived the Holocaust and went on to develop entire suburbs within Western Australia. Moving into Coolbinia, since before City of Stirling's inception, Dr. Hoffman remained an active resident of the city throughout his wonderful and long life. We acknowledge his niece, Councillor Migdale, who is a member of this council, and we extend our condolences to her, as well as Mrs. Hoffman and their extended family. I will now ask Councillor Criado if you'd like to make your announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don't feel quite appropriate making this announcement on the wake of the announcement you just made, so condolences to you, Susan. I just would like to announce that the City of Stirling, in collaboration with the RAC, was delighted to receive the top award in the Community Wellbeing and Diversity category of the 2022 Planning Institute of Australia Awards. The Nala Nolamara Pop-Up Plaza demonstrated how low-cost infrastructure and place activation can build local social connections and enterprise. This award recognizes the consideration given to the cultural attributes and preferences of the diverse Nolamara community and the opportunity for residents and local traders to make the space their own while addressing issues of community safety and inclusivity. Importantly, the project led to longer-term planning outcomes for people, including zoning changes in the neighborhood center and securing $300,000 state funding for a permanent plaza at the center. The funding is expected to be spent in the next financial year. The Planning Institute of Australia WA Awards for Planning Excellence was held on Friday, 4th November at the West in Perth, and the RAC and City of Stirling were honoured to receive such a prestigious award.
Thank you, Councillor. Look at that, Councillor Dudek. You're already winning awards. Before I do move on, I just want to make an apology. I've just realised I left Simon Ehrenfeld. You're okay with that? Yeah, apologies. I'll now move on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. And we'll now move on to reports and recommendations of committees. Councillors, with your indulgence, rather than go on to committees, I might even start by bringing forward item 13.1, if that's okay, given there's significant interest and there's many members of those communities here, rather than them having to wait through all the different committees. If there's no objections to that.
Mr Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it possible to bring forward all 13 items because it relates to golf course, the JDAP matter and the North Beach Soccer Club?
Yeah, there's no reason why not. I think if we've got those members of the committee here, let's get them done. Good suggestion, Councillor. We've got to do it all at some stage. So I will start with item 13.1, the Mount Lawley Golf Course Vegetation Management Plan. I believe, Councillor Lagan, you have a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got an alternative recommendation. Did you want me to read it? Or?
Yes, please.
So 13.1, all rec, that item 13.1, Mount Lawley Golf Course Vegetation Management Plan and Tree Removal, be referred to a future Community and Resources Committee until such time that the Mount Lawley Golf Club Master Plan is complete. Unsafe trees likely to result in imminent danger or catastrophic loss, accepted, delegated to city officers. Vegetation management plan relating to the Mount Lawley Golf Club Master Plan must be coordinated so that elected members are fully informed. The reason is essentially explained in there. We need a bit more oversight.
Thank you. And just for clarification, either yourself or officers, so it's to refer it until a future resource meeting after the master plan. Is there a date on the master plan expectations?
My understanding, Mr Mayor, is the master plan has been shelved. There is no master plan at the club. That is my initial concern, that the master plan is directly related to the OCM plan, and were we not to have oversight of the master plan and the club to go ahead with their recommendation from their architect, it is my belief that there could be increased loss of mature trees, and I would prefer that we have oversight of both those processes before we sign off. I have no issue with trees that are risk, and that's why they're listed within the alt-reg.
Okay, thank you. So that's a referral motion. So I'll...
Mr Mayor, sorry, you were just going to ask the officers about where the master plan's at.
So let's get clarification. Mr Hunter.
Mr Mayor, that as I mentioned before, the draft master plan hasn't been formally submitted to council. There was a draft, but my understanding is the preference from the club is to progress the Greens replacement program over 3 years, of which they've started with year 1 and now proceeding to years 2 and 3, which do propose tree removals as part of that program.
Thank you, Mr Hunter. Can I have a seconder for that procedural motion? Councillor Thornton, that is a procedural motion to hold it over. Is it just about the process?
Well, the question is, if there is no Mount Lawley Golf Club master plan, put that aside, then does that mean that unless there's something dangerous, they can only touch a tree? But otherwise, everything else, no actual planting,
Yes.
nothing
That's what
to
this
go
motion says.
on site. So that
They're allowed to plant, but this is regarding there's no trees removed until the master plan is presented.
so shouldn't they be not planting either? Because in case they plant in a place where they shouldn't be planting, if we don't have a bigger picture,
This isn't open for debate. That's what the motion is. So
that's my question. If you're going to halt everything, you either halt everything or you don't.
I'm sorry, it's not open for debate, councillor. So it's,
Well, I'm just confused. That's right.
but don't be confused. This is a straightforward referral motion to hold off.
Is this a procedural or can we have debate?
It's a procedural motion to hold it over. So is there a seconder for this procedural motion? Councillor Thornton. So we have that. There is no debate. It's to hold it over to a future meeting. I will now put that to the vote. We're still waiting for Ante, Sandri. Thank you, councillors. That is carried with myself voting against and all other councillors voting for. So that, so those members of the gallery who are here, that item has been held over, and officers will be in contact with the club to provide clarification on what that means. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 13.2, which is DA 290911, the proposed additions to the existing industry. There's an alternative rec has been received from Councillor Thornton. Councillor Thornton, would you like to?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have to leave chambers for this.
Yes. Sorry, councillors. Anyone who's on the JDAP who wishes to, who will be the member, we'll just pause until they leave. So we have Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Migdale will just leave the chambers for this item. Councillor Ree will also leave as a precaution. For those in the gallery, they sit on a decision-making panel called JDAP where they potentially... Councillor Sandri's just remembered she's on that panel as well. And Councillor Thornton, your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the alternative recommendation up on the board that the council endorses the city's responsible authority report to the Metro Inner North JDAP Joint Development Assessment Panel, which recommends approval of the proposed additions to the existing industry, which is a noxious industry, at Lot 68, House Number 9, Baden Street, Osborne Park, subject to the inclusion of the following additional conditions. Ongoing monitoring. 11. Do you want me to read them all?
I think so. I think it's...
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Prior to the completion of the works, a live feed electronic monitoring surveillance system is to be installed to the exterior of the premises, monitoring the offal, blood and feather bins shed area to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling. 12. Prior to the completion of the works, the electronic monitoring surveillance system shall be operational and is to be made available and accessible to the City of Stirling upon request. Also, ceding of right-of-way. 13. Prior to the lodgement of a building permit, a right-of-way along the eastern boundary of the subject land is to be provided in accordance with Figure 13 of the draft Herdsman Glendalough Structure Plan. The required land shall be ceded free of costs to the Crown. 14. The owner of Lot 68, 9 Baden Road, Osborne Street, Osborne Park, must seal, drain, and curb the right-of-way referred to in Condition 13 along the eastern lot boundary of the subject land for its full width and length to the engineering standards stipulated by the City of Stirling. The works required by this condition must be completed prior to the completion of the works, subject of this approval, to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling. 15. Prior to the commencement of the works, the owner must pay to the city a performance bond for the right-of-way works and enter into a standard form agreement with the city with respect to the use of the performance bond to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling.
Thank you. Thank you for those. I think it's important as we're adding these conditions in, if it's all right with you, before we get a seconder, if you just get a quick explanation from officers what that actually means in terms of, I think adding planning conditions on is something significant and council just needs to, yeah. And it's fine to do it, but we just, Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Councillors, so this is a responsible authority report you have in front of you, and the council report, I guess, explains the officer's recommendation through their report. Through the DAP guidelines and regulations, council can consider responsible authority reports, and this application has been called in. Council are able to recommend conditions to be added to a responsible authority report, and council may, in some instances, not support the officer's responsible authority report. So it is open to council to add conditions through the process as we put forward tonight.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Olo. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will go to the vote, noting that Councillor Hatton has also left the chamber. We have Councillor Olo, you vote? I think. Yep. There we are. I think that's everyone. Thank you, councillors. And that motion is carried with councillors, all councillors in attendance still, voting for, except myself voting against. I will now ask, can we get those councillors back in the room? Here we go. Are the others close? Yep. Were they just outside? They're coming. Good. Was Councillor Sandri behind you? Oh, come on. Yep. That's all right. We've got everyone. Here we are. Thanks, councillors. So we'll go on to item 13.3, the Balga Ward Councillors Committee membership. This is a result of a new councillor being sworn in tonight, and the recommendation is on the board. Do we have a mover for that recommendation? Move Deputy Mayor Proud. Second, Councillor Migdale. Is anyone opposed? No, then I'll put that to the vote. Thank you, councillors. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Is 13.4, before we actually go to it, can I ask, is it going to be discussed in terms of anything to do with any numbers? Yeah, in that case, we won't go to it. We'll actually hold it because we'll have to be behind closed doors. But no, I've had confirmation it will be discussed. So in that case, councillors, we will go right back to the start. Community and Resource Committee items. Are there any of those items you wish to pull out, councillors? Noting that 12.1 TE1 was referred to this meeting, so it will be discussed. No indication, then I will go to Councillor Ree.
Yes, please. May I please have 12.1 CS1? With 12.11F1, I just want to ask some questions that are not actually to do with the confidentiality of it, just to...
Sorry, which one?
12.1 WF1 as well. So 12.1 CC1 on page 11, 12.1 WF1 on page 72, but they're generic, they're not...
Is anything to do with the extension? So this is extension and variation of contract?
Yes.
Are you opposed to it, or can it be taken offline and ask those questions rather than bringing an item out at council?
Well, it's a generic question in the sense it's not breaching confidentiality, it's just why these things aren't included in. Whether or not the contract actually should go ahead because of the way it's written. So that's got nothing to do with confidentiality, it's to do with the actual...
Okay, we'll bring it out, Councillor. It's just, yeah.
Okay. And also...
My frustration is these have been debated heavily at committee, and we've had over a week to discuss these with officers, to bring it up and ask questions that could have been asked prior. But I'll bring it out.
Sometimes you don't get the answers you ask either, the questions or the
Councillor,
answers.
careful.
Well...
Thanks. Take a seat and we'll go to item 12.
I'll have 12.1 F1 too, please. Thank you.
12.1 CS1, Committee and Collaborations.
Did Councillor Reid pull out 12.1 CC1, page 11?
Yeah.
No, my understanding was it was CS1.
The CS1. CS1.
CS1.
Yes.
Thank you. On page 55.
I didn't know.
On that case, I will pull out 12.1 CC1, please.
Thank you. So we'll start with that. 12.1 CC1, Councillor Hatton as Chair of the Committee.
Yeah.
Committee recommendation, Councillor, and just your microphone,
Yeah,
Councillor.
I endorse the committee recommendation on that item.
Thank you. And just your microphones, both of you. Councillor Reid as well, please. Just your mics. Thanks. And is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed? Is it just a question? Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. I did put a series of questions through to the officers, so I apologise for this particular one. Just want confirmation that this particular policy around these events is subject to a review heading into next budget. If that is the case, then I'll support it this evening on the presumption that it is being reviewed. So if I can get an answer to that, please.
The answer is yes. I will put that to the vote then if no one is... Sorry, you've got a question on that one too? This is the first one, CC1. Yes, Councillor Reid?
On page 25, it actually mentions the Community Creative Fund, the city engages Mules on School. 3 projects were not funded to consider their funding for local schools. So then why is that the case that the Wright School, why is mine written that wrong? Page 20. The West Coast Steiner School. So if the staff make the comment on page 25 that it's not applicable to schools, then why is it on page 20 that we're given money? And then further on CS1, where Woodlands asked, they said no because it was a school. So could I just ask for clarification, because one...
Thank you, Ms O'Sullivan.
Yes, one says no.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair. In terms of the West Coast Steiner School, that application is regards to a reconciliation book project. It is different to the other applications for murals, art murals on state assets and state land.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, if it's through a reconciliation, isn't it part of their... We did put money into the reconciliation action plan to address issues like this. It's still a school, and if it's reconciliation, then I'm still a little bit confused why it ended up here.
Each of these applications are assessed on their own merits, Councillor, and this one conformed to the criteria that was assessed. That's a simple answer to it. Councillor Lagan, you got a question?
Thank you. And can I thank the officers for the details to questions at committee that were given in the white paper in the Friday bag. My question is to do with the book project.
and the PALS funding, the officers have given a comment back that finishes, it should be noted that the grants of 1,000 to 5,000 were available, and that's through the PALS funding, which is provided by the West Australian Government. It then goes on to say city officers did engage with the school to discuss other funding options. My question is, do the city officers make it as clear as possible to the applicants that they would encourage them to take up the PALS funds, or do we make it clear that they can seek our funds over the PALS funds?
Mr. O'Sullivan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In response to that NDIS funding is only applicable in terms of if the entity is charging a fee for their event or
Sorry,
service.
that's not. I'm going to ask a question about that one as well. This is CC1. It's about.
If you're going to go through several questions, Councillor, I'm going to open debate on this because I don't think it's. I think we should.
Only two.
Ms. O'Sullivan, these have been answered in the white paper, yeah?
That's why I'm asking. I don't believe it has.
Okay. Ms. O'Sullivan.
In response to the question, we responded in terms of the request, which was regarding the NDIS funding. In terms of the PALS funding, they were not eligible due to the timing for their application of this event.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thanks, Councillor Lagan. There's no further questions on this. Councillor Sandri.
Sorry. Just one other quick one. The definition of artist, and I asked this because I did ask a question today regarding mentorship, which is professional development, which we fund for artists. But the definition of artist is quite broad. So can I just put a proposition and ask if this would fall within that? Someone who is undertaking art classes with an ambition to be an artist or is practicing their art, would that be covered under the mentorship grant?
Ms. O'Sullivan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Chair. Just to quantify, our city art officers look into the current emerging artist and the degree of experience or mentorship they're applying for based on current experience and skill development, and that's assessed based on their criteria in terms of where they're at in their development, but not generally for a general resident who has an art interest. There usually needs to be a certain level of professional development or skill already obtained.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Sandri?
It does, but it's very dangerous territory. Thank you.
I've seen your doodles on the pad, Councillor Sandri. It won't qualify. All right, if there's no further questions, I'll put that one to a vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. We'll go on to 12.1 CS1, the Community Collaborations Fund. It's been pulled out. Councillor Hatton as Chair of the Committee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I endorse the committee recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? It's Councillor Migdale. Councillor Reid, you just have a question? Or is there anyone opposed, first of all? No one opposed? Councillor Reid, is it a question?
Yes, please. First question is, we did discuss this before. We didn't, in my opinion, didn't get a proper or understanding answer, is that we did ask that if we're going to give funding, in order for us to approve the budget, Council needs to know around the table what's going on. So that was ages ago. So now we've got different sorts of funding and they seem to go from one to the other. What concerns me that if you say in here, when it says on page 63 and over, why you didn't get the funding, some of it actually says, well, they should have gone to the Creative Fund or the whatever, Widgymortha Fund. You know, are we knocking back people because they went to the wrong fund? Doesn't seem right. And to me, this wasn't the objective of council. We were trying to get more people to get a share of the pie, not to have it into a whole lot of variety of funds that people are confused. So
what I can confirm is all of the applicants engage with city officers, and it's not a process where there's no engagement from city officers and they're just told they don't get it. So they're all talked through the process and they're discussed, and it shouldn't be confusing.
So why is it there that one of them says, where it says that they should have been referred to a different fund? If they were referred to a different fund, then they would have been eligible. So why, as you say, we're discussing it with officers, then why weren't they just returned to that fund and then they apply. So that's one concern I have that may not be answering it. On page 58, why is it that we've got the Reclink Youth and Multicultural Program? Why is it only in the Belga ward? We've got multicultural people throughout the city.
That's not a remit of the council to decide what the groups do. The groups do what they do and they apply for the grant. That's up to them if they want to do it in Belga, the same as other programs happen in other areas of the city.
Well, with one of the criteria and the objectives is to show that it's a citywide program for the benefit of everyone, blah, blah, blah. Why wouldn't we be saying, you know, take this further?
That's not the remit of this council.
Okay. With page 57, the people that, as I said before, the eligibility and like the Woodlands Primary School, when we had in Community Creativity Fund criteria, we weren't saying you could use the school and then the comment back that we used the Steiner School, but then the comment is that you can't. So from somebody reading this and then wanting to put in for funding, I'm just saying that from a blank canvas, people got a bit confused and rang me and said, well, where do we go in this? And yes, the idea is for the staff to make it easier. Yes, the staff are talking, but when you look at it like this, why people are not fully in there, it just gets, I think it just needs to be tidied up. That's all. I mean, not that I'm against it, I've just said there's a whole lot of anomalies in here, and I think we've got to be fair across the city.
Notice, councillor, but if there's a suggestion it's not fair, then I reject that. It goes through a thorough and a rigorous process behind the scenes, and not everyone is going to be eligible for the funding. So if there's no one opposed to that item, I will put it to council. We've got a couple to go. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll also pull out item 12.1 F1, Schedule of Accounts. Councillor Hatton as chair of the committee.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I move that the committee recommendation be accepted.
And a seconder, Councillor Perkoff. Councillor Ree, you opposed, or have you got a question?
My generic question is, with regard to waste collection, when we're actually looking at contractors and how they should be doing it to make it better for the community, why isn't planning involved? Because one of the biggest problems we've got is that, you know, we've got...
This is a schedule of accounts.
I know, but this is where it's also, it's the extension, the option of 2 years contract. So without saying what we do in this contract, what I'm saying is that planning have allowed 2 houses in a block and then they become 20 and then the contractors
Councillor,
can't get there.
we've pulled out 12.1 F1. Have I pulled out the wrong one for you?
No, that's right. It's the extension of the contract, what they're supposed to do on the contract. I just don't think it goes far enough. That's my point.
That's a stretch for that item. But anyway, so there's no one opposed to this, so I will put that item. We've got a couple of councillors need a vote on this one. Criado, Ree and Sandri. Sandri? Councillor Sandri? That's all right. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We now bring out item 12.1 T1. I think we'll probably have to do this one behind closed doors. Possibly.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question with regards to 12.1F3 and the memo? The OREC? Through you, can I just ask the officer if the updates were done to the form?
There's an OREC that
Yes, it needs to. Sorry.
So, yeah, Ms Hawkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The updates were done to the form, so the application form has been updated. The updates can't be done to the policy because unless we amend the council resolution from committee, because committee adopted the policy as it stood. But the application form, yes, is changed.
Mr Mayor, in the white paper there was an alternative recommendation. I think we've omitted pulling that one out. Is it possible to pull that out?
I'm sure the intent of this was that it got changed, Ms Hawkins. Yeah. So let's, seeing as we can't do 12.1 T1, I'm happy to leave that to the end of the meeting, as I'm sure it hasn't been debated yet. It's been referred without debate to this meeting. So let's go to 12.1 F3. We've done F1. We voted on that. So let's do 12.1 F3. Councillor Hatton as chair of the committee.
Yes, Mr Mayor, there was quite a bit of debate on this and I'd move the alternative recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Migdale, this was your request. Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to that? If not, I will put that item. Thanks, councillors. That's unanimous. Well picked up, councillors. I think that was important. That's definitely the intent of the debate that came out of committee. Councillors, I'll now ask that Councillor Hatton move the balance of reports with exception to 12.1 T1, which will be dealt with behind closed doors.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the balance of the reports. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ferrante. Put that to the vote. Thanks, councillors. That is unanimous. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised that the remainder of those Community and Resource Committee items from the 22nd of November have now been adopted by exception resolution, and we'll move on to the Planning and Development Committee items. Any alt recs have been added to your running sheet, including those provided to governance today. Item 12.2 DS1, that's the first one, is required to be pulled out as Councillor Farrelly has declared a financial interest and has asked to leave the room for that one. Councillors, are there any others that you wish to pull out? Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. I don't wish to debate it, just vote on it. 12.2 DS4 regarding the establishment of public art and private land assessment panel on page 267.
Sure. Councillor Farrelly?
I'd just like to pull out 12.2 DS5 on page 275, local planning scheme. Really a question more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ree? Was that the one? That's the one. And I'll ask to bring out 12.2 8.1, please. Not to debate. No. Thank you, councillors. Okay, let's get started. Let's have 12.2 DS1. If we can just pause while Councillor Farrelly leaves the room. Thank you. And Councillor Migdale as chair of the committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Kristovich, is there anyone opposed? Okay, I will put that to the vote. Councillor, yep, that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. If we can have Councillor Farrelly brought back in. And we'll... Thank you. We're now going to item 12.2 DS4, the establishment of public art and private land. Councillor Migdale as chair of the committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move the committee's recommendation.
Is there a seconder for this recommendation? Councillor Criado. Thank you. It wasn't asked to be pulled out for debate. It was just so someone could vote against it, unless someone would like to oppose it. In that case, I will put that to the vote. Thank you. We got one more. That's it. That motion is carried. We have 4, Councillor Criado, Dudek, Farrelly, Hatton, Kristovich, Migdale, Perkoff, Proud and myself. Against, Councillors Ferrante, Lagan, Olo, Ree, Sandri and Thornton. Item 12.2 DS5 has been pulled out by Councillor Farrelly. As Chair of the Committee, Councillor Migdale, your motion.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll move the committee's recommendation.
Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Sandri, is there anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly, is there someone, you are opposed? Yes, Councillor Rhea is opposed. So we'll go to the mover of a motion. Councillor Migdale.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just make a brief comment on it. This policy has been in existence for quite some time and was beneficial for a lot of people, particularly along the coast, the higher parts of Dinella, Mount Lawley, etc., where they have sloping topographies. However, the R codes, which is a state government policy, has been amended to allow a metre additional height, correct me if I'm wrong, that's correct, which actually now renders the policy somewhat superfluous. The policy allows for an additional 1.5 metres in height depending on the topography and where the assessment's undertaken. If the policy remains in place, it's just simply adding another layer of assessment for the officers when in fact it's already covered in the R codes. And just to note that keeping the policy in place in the instances where it does work, will be giving people additional height over and beyond what the R codes allows for. The only element of the policy that's different, I guess, from the R codes is that it requires advertising at a certain trigger, but notwithstanding most height variations under the R codes would be advertised, I assume, by the city's planning team. I'm happy to get clarification, Mr Mayor, on that, maybe before I make that statement.
Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Sandri for the question. It would depend on what the impact is. If the officers determine that the height variation would have an impact on the amenity of an adjoining landowner or adjoining landowners, of course we would advertise a proposal.
Thank you. And I guess I've had a discussion offline with the city's officers regarding the revocation of this policy because it has been successful for quite some time, noting that now the new R codes has, well not new R codes, but the amended R codes has the additional metre. I think as a council we probably need to revoke this policy and maybe think more strategically when we get LPS number 4 about another policy that does assist those landowners with those sloping sites. But I don't think this policy is right for that as it's currently written, and I think in the future we can definitely develop a better policy that's more in line with the current R codes and those sites, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rhea, you're opposed?
Yeah, I'm opposed because I don't think, one, it's necessary at this stage, but I do believe that it's important when I look at the childcare centres. You know, the childcare centres, it's a major issue to have a great big two-storey building and they're monumental with regarding the height, etc. like that, in a quiet little residential area. So I think that the policy is needed. And yes, I agree with
Councillor, I just need to work out, I'm trying to get a link to the relevance of a childcare centre compared to residential height.
Because when they are writing the reports and the comments made many times by developers when we're arguing at DAP regarding residential, it's in a residential area, they keep on saying the residential building height is okay for childcare centres, which are becoming mammoth.
All right, so let me get clarification because it's not related to this policy though. So that's the R codes that allows two-storey in those zonings that allow that. This is about the way the residential heights are calculated. Yeah, Ms Shears, I'll just get clarification for you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's correct. Essentially, this policy is a duplication of what the R codes are saying. In circumstances where we do have a childcare, commercial buildings have a slightly different floor-to-ceiling height ratio as well. This is particularly a policy in relation to residential building height, and it's not something that is applied to childcare centres.
I've actually listened to the developer actually, and you know they do stretch the truth. They've actually said that when we've looked at it at DAP. So to me, until we can change it to something better, I don't believe it should be revoked at this stage. And that is coming in line with Councillor Sandri said when you look at the whole town planning scheme. But they've got to go together. I don't think revoking this and not replacing it with something else is the idea at this stage. I think we're putting the cart before the horse and we're not protecting the community from some of these questionable buildings.
Thanks, Councillor Rhea. Councillor Farrelly?
My question is directed to the planning staff, and it really is in regard to if we delete the policy, do the R codes definitely cover the fact that the buildings will not, I understand there could be a metre difference, is that correct, first of all?
Yes, Ms Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, the R codes provided an additional metre through the amendment that was done recently.
My real concern is that the metre difference could make quite a difference if there's been measurements against the previous height comparison when you're in residential areas. And I'm thinking of places like North Beach, where they have views of the ocean, and depending on the heights of those buildings, this could make a big difference to potentially what occurs and what is allowed if we just run with the R codes. I have a question, answer on that one, please.
We don't get a choice, so I can probably answer that. We don't get a choice whether we run with the R codes. The R codes are the head body. They're the ones we go to. The policy sits underneath that, and this is about the way it was calculated in the old school, which City of Stirling, I believe, is one of the only ones that calculate it with that angled method, which creates a lot of confusion for anyone trying to go through a development. So this was to simplify the process. How did I do as a planner? Ms Shears?
Honorary degree,
Yeah,
Mr
thanks.
Mayor.
Can I probably have any further direction on that, please?
Oh, I tried. Mr Roddick?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillor Farrelly, the building height policy at the moment refers to the R codes for the height requirements in the 2 stories and the metres. What our policy is about largely is, as Mr Mayor pointed out, is how you calculate average natural ground level. So all this policy is saying is that if we go back to the R codes and remove it, we'll just be calculating building height from natural ground level. So the R codes had a change a few months ago, maybe even more than that, increasing the height by a metre for residential development in areas in R35 and below, and that's still the case under the current policy. So the new policy isn't changing that. By revoking this policy, it's just how we calculate building height.
In the industry, we use ANGL as one of those acronyms. But are there any other indication, councillors? If there's no indication, I will ask Councillor Migdale if you'd like to close debate.
Nothing further, thank you.
And I will put that to the vote. Thank you, councillors. That is carried with Councillor Ree voting against the recommendation, all other councillors voting for the recommendation. I'll now go on to item 12.2.8.1, a portion of Crown Reserve being lot 10541 West Coast Highway, and go to you as the Chair of the Committee, Councillor Migdale, to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm happy to move the committee's recommendation.
And the Deputy Mayor has asked to second that. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that one to the vote. And we've got one to go, Councillor Sandri. Thank you. That motion is carried with Councillors Criado, Dudek, Ferrante, Hatton, Kristovich, Migdale, Olo, Perkoff, Proud and Thornton voting for, and against Councillors Farrelly, Lagan, Ree, Sandri and myself. And with that, that brings us to the balance of reports. Councillor Migdale, would you like to move the balance of reports for the Planning and Committee meeting 29th of November?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the balance of reports.
Thank you. Seconded, Deputy Mayor. And I'll go to the vote on that, councillors. We've got 2 to go. Councillor Lagan, Councillor Sandri, I think it is. Thank you, and that is unanimous, councillors. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised that the remainder of those Planning and Development Committee meeting items have now been adopted by exception resolution. We've already done item 13, councillors. So we'll now go on to item 14, which is notice of motion for consideration. So I'll go to 14.1, notice of motion, Councillor Sandri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have an alternative recommendation
Sure.
because it wasn't provided in the report.
Yep.
So I don't think the officers wanted it, but sorry. Essentially,
It's your recommendation.
is for a report to be presented to council I said March, but I do note the report says April. Maybe clarification from the director. Can we do March?
Mr Murphy?
Sorry, just before I actually.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. The report does say we can do it by April, and it's because the West team are pretty busy with
Okay,
other
April
things,
it
so
is. That's
April would
fine.
be our preference.
Yep, April, identifying options for a second type of skip bin on demand to allow alternative rubbish like building material. Thank you.
Councillor Perkoff's already whacked his hand up, and I know why, because he's trailer and trailer loads of rubble. We heard about him whinge for weeks about it. So that has been seconded. If there's no one opposed, I'll put that to a vote, councillors. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Item 14.2, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Farrelly on South Trigg Car Park. Your motion? Yeah, just stand up and the motion you'd like? Yep.
The motion that I'd like is the one that the council further investigates the costings and feasibility of formalising car bays along the Trigg Esplanade to protect.
Oh, sorry, I think we're on the wrong one. So
14.2. Oh, sorry.
So this is the South Trigg Car Park.
Oh, sorry, page 420, that the city proceeds with the design and construction of a link road to accommodate left turns out from West Coast Drive into West Coast Highway.
Thank you. And it's seconded, Councillor Kristovich. So anyone? Okay. I'm just wondering if you sure you've done the right one? Yes? Okay. Yep. Okay. Then we'll put that to the vote. Thank you. That is unanimous. I'll now go on to item 14.3, proposed notice of motion. Councillor Farrelly, do you want to move the motion, do you, Councillor Kristovich?
We've still got 15 up. I've taken note of the alternative motion, and I would prefer to put another motion forward, that the city prepares costings and feasibility of car bays along the Trigg Esplanade to protect dunes and green corridors, taking into account that it is not a very high construction work. It is one in which can be accommodated within the beach lane setting.
Councillor, let's leave that bit out because I think that's a reason for it.
Yeah.
I think you've actually asked to prepare costing, so then you're giving the answer in the
All right,
recommendation.
fair costing. Is that all right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's covered in it, so you're asking
Yeah.
to prepare
All
costings.
right, thanks.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kristovich, is there anyone opposed? A question?
Would the mover consider informal, like instead of doing asphalt resurfacing through there to create the car bays, but instead like informal parking? So it might be grass, maybe not grass because it's next to the bushland, but crushed limestone or something to that effect. That's my question, maybe just to
Sure, and I think
give a
that,
hint to the officers when they're doing
I would concur with that, absolutely. Thank you.
and I think as long as the intent's there, it doesn't need to be in the motion. I think that, yeah, happy with that. I think the councillor's looking for a good outcome, not one that can't be done. There we go. So we'll now put that if no one is opposed. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Lagan, you have a motion?
Yes, I do have a question before, through you to officers. The suggested alternative recommendation mentions following completion of the Community Safety Service Review, which I believe has gone to audit. Can I just get have we 50% done on that? 70% done on that? How far?
Mr Quirk?
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, we haven't brought that back to Audit Committee yet, so it is likely to be coming back in the first quarter of 2023, which will then enable us to inform the 22-23 budget.
Happy with that, Councillor Lagan?
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you. It's seconded for that. Councillor Sandri. Is anyone opposed?
Question.
Question, Deputy?
Is this for the alternative? You didn't say that.
Yes. It's a motion up there. Yep. Okay, I'll put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. We'll now go on to proposed notice of motions for next meeting. It's all right, we'll get through them. Councillor Ree?
Thank you. I'd like to notice a motion that a proper report, or whatever adjective you want to use.
Let's just stick with the report.
Okay, a report. I used that one last time, didn't use it though. A report on the Bennett Park redevelopment, and including in that is the with regard to the sheds, the walls, and that are.
Is there an actual motion you want to put up?
Yes.
Yep.
The report on the Bennett Park redevelopment be presented to the next community and resource meeting. With regard to the original business plan.
Can I suggest that it comes to audit? Because the Bennett Park redevelopment has been completed. So what you're asking for is a report to come to audit, outlining the timeline,
the costings,
processes and
why it's
costings.
overcosting, and also the design, because what's come into reality isn't what was, I don't know, wasn't there to start with.
Sure.
And the impact it has on the bowling club, Doubleview Bowling Club, needs to be put in there.
All right.
Okay?
We'll do that. We've got time to sort that out afterwards, and we'll make sure it's clarified.
Yeah.
Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. It feels like a Groundhog Day. That a report be presented to the next available council meeting providing options for Inglewood on Beaufort to establish the Artist in Residence program within the former after-school care facility at the Inglewood Town Square. This matter, the reason for my motion, this matter has been ongoing for more than 12 months. A decision needs to be made to provide certainty to the non-for-profit organisation, Inglewood on Beaufort, and for this part of the town square to be activated. I so move again, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri. And it was a little dramatic, but Councillor Kristovich.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I've got a motion as well, which reads that a report be presented to Council to advise of the future planning and options for coastal hazard mitigation works at Waterman's Bay Beach. And the rationale for that particular motion is that back in 2009 there was a storm, and in 2010 there was all these geotextile bags that were put up there to protect the beach. It's been 12 years now, and I believe when it was originally done it was a temporary measure.
Worked out pretty good though. Councillor Farrelly, you've got a motion?
Look, it really relates also to the Metten speech, the same request to, in terms of the a report be also presented on the future planning and options for coastal hazard mitigations in regard to the steps down to Mettens. That is still a...
Councillors, can I suggest that...
You put them together?
I'm just worried that we're on a roll at the moment. Can I just ask that, one, we put this together, but also that notice of motions are for reports to be written which take significant amount of time of officers that require a decision of council. Some of these things could just be a phone call to an officer after a meeting.
I would keep them separate,
some
actually.
can't.
Can we just do Meddens separate? Because we, Meddens is something that I think...
We can do them separate, but in the same report. I don't think we need two separate set-out reports.
No, that's all right. Okay.
Because they're just a report to come and explain. I think the work's already been done anyway with the chair mapping
look,
and consultations.
it's really, the skeletons have been given out to the community, but it's just answering that question that's sitting out there all the time and being asked of us.
Understood.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor? This is where council say they're going to have a break after this, but the officers don't get one,
I've got to keep them busy for the next 8 weeks. That a report be presented to an audit committee meeting in the first half of 2023 to provide council with a status update and to outline the next steps to progress item 12.2 PRS1 in inverted commas, use of lot 0, house number 273 West Coast Highway, Scarborough, for the purpose of temporary parking, as resolved at the ordinary meeting of council held on the 2nd of July 2019. The reason being, it's pretty much already there, to progress the resolution 0719/015 carried.
That's fine. We've got it.
You got it?
Yeah, we got it.
Good.
Councillor Dudek, your motion? I'm just teasing. Just Having a go at the new guy. It was priceless, councillor. Councillors Ferranti, I think you've got one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine was pre-organised and deposited in the correct manner. That a report be presented to council, actually presented to the Community Resources Committee meeting in late Feb, regarding the option to rescind a parking fine which has been issued to a City of Stirling parking user who overstays no more than 90 minutes, and if the full payment of the extra time is made within 24 hours via the City of Stirling parking app. The reason for this will allow situations where a paid parking user who accidentally runs over time and would have genuinely paid for the additional time be exempted for this fine and less parking meters. Thank you.
Just asking for a friend, councillor. And are there any other indications, councillors, of notice of motions? No. Thank you. Item 15, questions by members of which due notice has been given. I have nil, and item 16, I have nil. Item 17, matters behind closed doors. We do have a couple now that we will bring out, so I'll have a mover, Deputy Mayor, to go behind closed doors. Seconder, Councillor Reid. Just a show of hands, councillors. If we can go behind closed doors. Thank you. That's unanimous. If we open the doors, please. Thank you, councillors. Thank you for your patience and your solid debate as we got through a significant agenda tonight. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and hope you enjoy a break through the next few months and hope you manage to get yourselves a break. Councillors, please join us, and directors and managers who'd like to join us now in the Councillor Lounge. For some deep fried nibblies, yes. And yes, there's some real food. And I declare the meeting closed at 8:27 p.m.